This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. I had a magical 40th birthday. I was 7 months pregnant with my son, and my friends threw an incredible birthday party and baby shower in their gorgeous home. I had a fantastic pregnancy. I felt strong, I felt beautiful, I felt loved, and very excited to become a mom. But my 40s turned out to be quite challenging. I had to figure out motherhood while feeling isolated in a place that wasn't my home. I supported my husband's battle with cancer when my son was just a few months old. And then I lost my beloved, adored mom to cancer. We also went through 2 big moves, one to a different part of the country, and then a few years later to the whole other continent. That was a big move, and it turned out to be very challenging for our whole family. But in spite of all these challenges, or maybe because of them, I never felt being 40 was difficult. I felt beautiful, I felt healthy, I felt strong. And 40 was when I went back to developing myself professionally. I started working as a Hollywood reporter and built a strong career in journalism. And then later, I started this podcast, which became my life's work. And then I turned 50 and had a magical 50th celebration with my dearest friends who came from all over the world. And I was excited to be finally back home in Vienna and had a beautiful, beautiful party there. Turning 50 felt special because I still felt fantastic in my skin. And at that stage, I felt that I made all my dreams true. And that included, among other things, owning a home and becoming a university professor. What I'm trying to say is, let's not be scared of age. I absolutely agree with many women, one of them was my mom, who say that as they age, they become more confident, more fulfilled, more happy, and more empowered than ever. And yes, the grays are annoying. And yes, I have wrinkles around my eyes. And yes, my jawline is sagging and cellulite is appearing in places it's never been before. But does that really matter? What really matters is that we've reached the stage of mastery, the stage where we've already proven ourselves to the world, where we've learned our lessons, where we got stronger through the challenges life threw at us. And on top of that, one of the lessons I keep learning from my guests' mothers is that our 60s and 70s can be a time of biggest joy ever. And so, as a granddaughter of a woman who passed away at 32, wow, she was 20 years younger than me right now. I want to say, hooray for aging. It's a luxury. So how fantastic we get to talk today with Stacey Lindsay, the author of Being 40. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My guest today is Stacey Lindsay. Stacey is a journalist and editor whose work focuses on women's issues, spirituality, and civics. She's the author of Being 40, The Decade of Letting Go and Embracing Who We Are. As a multimedia journalist, Stacey has reported for local and national television, radio, print, and digital outlets and has interviewed hundreds of public figures and civilians and very interesting people, Stacey, about the lives we lead and the lives we seek. She lives outside Seattle, which I miss very much, with her husband and their rescue pup. Stacey, welcome.
Anna, thank you so much. It is So magical to hear you say the title of my book because your support, your energy, you've been a part of this journey with me. So thank you for having me on.
I am so very excited, and it's beautiful how we connected from the first contact on, haven't we? I remember when I pitched "Thank You, Mama" to you as a story or something, and your email back that just brought tears to me. You loved the topic immediately, and since then we stayed in touch and followed each other's work. I wanted to have you on the podcast way earlier, but at one point you said, "Listen, I'm going to start working on this book. Let's keep it for when the book is out." And now the book is out and it's beautiful and I'm very excited.
Thank you.
I wrote down a quote from your book, which really deeply touched me because you put in words what I feel about my work. You said, "My deepest passion is to write about and for women. Every opportunity to illuminate a woman's complexity and beauty gives further reason to why my voice in journalism exists." That's so beautiful. Thank you for doing that work.
It's the honor of my life, I have to say. It's to be able to sit across from someone, stand across from someone and listen to their story, listen to their pain, their loss, their joy, their happiness. I absolutely, I'm endlessly inspired by people and honored, and specifically women.
Yes.
I mean, and that's become
we share that.
my,
Yeah.
we do. It's become my unofficial journalistic beat over the past several years, just listening to women's stories. And I am enamored with all people. I have to say, though, I am just
and all life
so
stories.
joyful. All life stories, yes.
All stories, but women especially.
But women, oh my gosh. And we contain multitudes, right? To steal from Walt Whitman, we contain multitudes. We're so powerful and vulnerable and strong. And I really believe we're the ones who are making the world go around, truly.
We are. Do you feel, which I do now that I've done this 200 interviews and also wrote and interviewed women for other outlets in media and not only for this podcast, what I find fascinating and what is definitely going to be a topic for the book is how we all live one life in a certain shape and form. The more women I talk to, I really feel we are all intertwined into this one woman's life. And that feels extremely inspiring and empowering for me and comforting.
I agree. I feel that as well. And for my experience working on this book for several years and interviewing all the women that I interviewed, the thing that kept surprising me was the appetite to tell our stories.
Yes.
And I thought that was a known, right? Like we know women love to gather, women love to talk, we love to share ideas and tips and gossip and whatever it is. But I don't think I realized just how much I saw it firsthand, how much we want to talk about whatever it is, mothering, our bodies changing, what we're scared of, what we're so frustrated about. And for that reason, that circles back to the point you just made. I really do believe we are all interconnected, energy wise, experience wise. I mean, we're going down our own paths, but I agree, we're all interconnected. And so when I have these conversations like you, I realize more and more, wow, we're having these experiences that are so parallel with one another.
Yes.
And that's why we want to talk about it and share about it more.
Yes. And I think the more we share and talk about it, the more we weave this thick carpet of, I don't know how to call it, of womanhood that's becoming stronger and stronger. You know, the more we share it and the more we talk about it and the more we realize this, the stronger we get. And more empowered we get. Tell me very quickly, just for the introduction, as I read in the book, you've always known you want to be a journalist.
Christiane Amanpour, right? I know you love her. I mean, I remember watching her when I was young and just thinking, what is she doing? She's out in the world. She's asking people questions. She's telling stories. I want to do that. And so it was looking at her, it was looking at Maria Shriver, it was looking at Lisa Ling, it was looking at these amazing journalists just doing these very bold things. of asking people about their vulnerabilities. And so, yes,
Yeah.
early on, I knew I wanted to do that in some way, shape, or form. And it burned inside me for a long
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
was a writer and I did journalism in high school for the high school newspaper.
Yeah.
And then I got a little far away from it in college and undergrad because I started studying film, but that is storytelling, of course. But then I came back to it. I just love it. I love it. And so you and I have that in common as well.
No, I mean, I don't, we have the passion in common, but I only discovered it in my 30s. I never,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
started, when I was little, I wanted to be a princess ballerina.
Well, you are, and you do still
I do still
dance.
dance, and I am
Yeah.
a princess. As one of my husband's friends described me, I am an effing princess or something. I
Own
need a
it. I
t-shirt with
love
that. I
it.
totally own it. But anyway, and then I started marketing, and I did an MBA, and I had a very long corporate career. My dream back then was to become a CEO of Disney Studios.
Okay, I
And
thought journalism
yeah,
happened and storytelling was earlier for you. That's so
no.
interesting.
And then towards the end of my corporate career, I started writing accidentally, just writing down some stories. And that bug just, I really became infected. Like I couldn't stop writing. I would come home from work and just write in the evenings and weekends and everything. And then I burned out in my work and realized that either I can take antidepressants, as the doctor said I should, and go back, or I need to change my life completely.
Yeah.
And having experienced the joy and really the Zen moments I experienced writing, I decided I'll give this a chance. And then it just happened, one thing after the other. That was
I'm
incredible.
so glad it happened.
Yeah.
On behalf of all of us women, I'm so
Thank
glad.
you. But tell me about the book. How did the book happen?
How did the book happen? It's one of those fun stories where I feel like it was happening way before I even knew it was happening, right? As I'm sure
Yeah.
you can relate with your book
Yeah.
and the one you're working on now. But it was interesting, I would say probably 5 years ago. I started doing more storytelling, more reporting around the idea of aging with power. So I was doing a lot of interviews with public figures, with women, with men in their 60s, 70s, 80s about really declaring themselves later in life and proving that it's not downhill, that you can make major changes, you can make pivots, whatever it may be, later on in life. And I was so fascinated by that. I loved it, especially too, as a woman, we're so, we face ageism galore, right? It's everywhere. With that said, at the same time, I was going through a personal change, revolution, if you will. There's so many ways to describe it. That was my late 30s. And I realized right before my 40th and then right after my 40th birthday, I noticed there's a really beautiful conversation about midlife happening, but there wasn't anything specific to our 40s. And that kind of coupled with this desire of writing about aging with power and growing older with power, I thought, I want to really actually start to look at this decade specifically, because the thing that's really, there's many things that are fascinating about the 40s, but they are this kind of tipping point in a sense where society starts to get really mean toward women. I mean, there's been this old story around, oh my gosh, 40 is the age where you're pushed out. 40 is the time when you start declining. 40 is a time you're entering midlife and it's predictability. And then it just gets harder and whatever after that. And I saw that is not true. For my own experience, I was experiencing this almost primal electric desire to start to really put down these stories and really look at what I had been holding for a long time, these expectations. And at the same time, Anna, I was seeing these women in their 40s who were just declaring themselves and coming alive. And I thought, this is such a fascinating decade. And also, it's just a way to kind of unpack the deep storytelling around women in general, right? I mean, this book is anchored in the 40s. There's some things that are very specific to this decade, specifically the health chapter, how we really need to start taking care of ourselves more in our 40s. but it's for women of any age too.
Yeah,
So
it definitely is.
it really
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
is.
it
It
was,
is.
I was looking around and I was experiencing and I was witnessing all of this. And then at the same time, I was living this too in my body. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to start writing about this. And then I started talking to women about it. And I say the floodgates opened. Again,
Yeah.
women want to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this.
The book is really, it's an encyclopedia. It's amazing what you've written, what you've put together, not only the literature. I took out, I don't know how many names and books that of women who I found interesting and books I want to read, but also all the interviews. It's so rich and dense on, wow, the magic of being women in our 40s. Would you like, or no, not would you like, you don't have a choice. Could you please tell my listeners about the book and the structure and what they could expect with the book? Love the structure, by the way. Love it.
I organize. Oh, do you? Do you?
Yeah, love the
I was
structure.
really, well, I'll tell you organically how it came about. So for those of you listening, I structure the book around these big life topics. So each chapter is focused on one life topic. So there's a chapter focused on work. There's a chapter focused on beauty and beauty expectations. There's a chapter focused on motherhood, having and not having children, and then the need to mother ourselves. There is a chapter focused on partnership and how women are partnering and not partnering in various ways today, and how that's evolving so rapidly and beautifully. And then there's a chapter dedicated to our health. And the reason why I organize this book this way is when I was having conversations with women, again, focused on our 40s, but I do interview women younger and older for the book too. So it is a constellation of many, many ages. But when I was interviewing women, I noticed in our conversations that every conversation, at least one of these topics bubbled to the surface, if not several of them. You can't talk about being a woman, right, without talking about the beauty expectations and how society is so tough on how we look. You and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
You can't talk about being a woman without the expectations around motherhood. So I thought, wow, to kind of make this even more digestible, why don't I architect it so each chapter almost kind of is self-contained too. The book is a linear story, but you can just pick up one chapter and read that and digest it and then put it down and then pick up another one. But it just organically evolved that way. It's these big things. And also, these are the things, again, work, beauty, motherhood, that society judges us the most around. We're never doing any of these things good enough according to patriarchal standards. Even though we are doing them good enough, we're doing them so incredibly well. So,
but also according to our own standards, I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. The enemy is not always on the outside, and this is where we really have to re-educate ourselves and change our viewpoint. But you write a lot about self-compassion, and that is so important to be like, oof. No, I don't have to do this perfectly, or I don't have to do all of this, not right now. That's really, really important.
it can actually be almost violent too, how we think about ourselves in terms of, oh my gosh, I don't look good, or I hate this part of my body, or I am always doing this wrong, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy enough. And it actually is almost self-inflicted violence toward ourselves mentally. It's really, really serious. And it can be very easy just to go easy on yourself, have more self-compassion. And I do write about that in the book.
You do, yeah.
But one of the things that I think is so critical is zooming out and seeing how we have been conditioned and we have been told these stories that we are supposed to be this way and do these things by a certain time, and to zoom out and to see that these stories are completely manufactured. They're made up. And they're hurting all of us too, no matter how we identify. But that's one way that has helped me really, and I have that in the book too, is realizing, okay, we're up against this story. So there is a reason why we are hard on ourselves. And then from there, we can start just truly working on going easier and not even saying more, these mean things in our own heads. It's a process, but it's also radically freeing too. It's so freeing.
And I love it that you talk about patriarchy and you take it back. So that's really, really, really beautiful and important for all of us. Let's talk about Mama. What is her
Let's
name?
talk about Mama. Her name's Lynn.
Lynn.
I love her. I
Oh
love my
my
mama so
God.
much. And I was just with
What a
her recently.
story.
Oh, what a story. Yeah.
Tell me. Tell me her story.
All of our mothers, what a story. But my mother's story has been the most beautiful lesson in listening to yourself, and the most beautiful lesson too in witnessing how we can get very far from our truth when we are trying to do all the right things in the face of, again, a patriarchal society. And this is where the self-love comes in. This is where the self-compassion comes in. My mother has always been an incredibly loving, incredibly giving person. And I grew up in a very conventional household where I wanted for nothing. Me and my older brother, we had birthday parties, we had food on the table, I had two parents who were incredibly giving to us. With all that said, there was a heat in our household. There was a tension. My father was an alcoholic, and I say was, he passed 18 years ago due to his drinking. My father was a functioning alcoholic, though. He went up and went to work every day and provided. And I watched them kind of have this tension grow between them for their own reasons, too. My father was crumbling under the expectations placed on a man. My mother was starting to crumble under the expectations placed on a woman. She was trying to do everything, be a good mom, be a good partner, be loving, and she was. But at the same time, there was this burning desire in her. This life she was living was not fitting her. And it didn't mean she didn't love us. She did, and she still does, but it was not fitting. And at the same time, my father's drinking was really hard on her. And the wild part of this is when I was 16 years old, I was away for the weekend with my then boyfriend and his family. And I remember coming back, my boyfriend dropped me off. I walked up the stairs to our house. I walked inside and I saw my father sitting there on the couch, and most of the furniture was gone and my mom had left. And she had to leave. And it was absolutely devastating. It's a devastating story that ultimately does have an ending of empowerment, but she left. And she and I worked on rebuilding our relationship all those years since, and we have a beautiful relationship now. But I saw, in the interesting thing, she was in her late 40s too. And I think that she just came to this time of self-declaration, of really looking at what she yearned for and also what she didn't want to continue holding that was too heavy for her. And witnessing that all these years, I've learned so many things from afar and close from her story.
Did you stay in touch while she was away? Was she present in your life?
She was present. Those first, I would say, 6 to 9 months were really, really, really tough. So I was 16. My brain wasn't fully formed, right? I had a boyfriend, I had school, I had my job, and I was kind of doing all those things, what I remember, just functioning as like a teenager. But I was also devastated. And I was devastated to see how it crushed my father, really.
Yeah.
I did keep in touch with her. She called. She was again living elsewhere. She never came back. She left for good, but she was still wanting to actively mother and be in my life. And it was hard though. That first year, 6, 9 months up to a year was really, really hard. I saw her. I didn't see her for several months. Then I did see her where she was living months later. And then I started visiting her, and we were kind of not even rebuilding at that point, but just getting our bearings in this new context of what this meant. And her journey, it was not a neat, she left and then she found happiness. It was this long, probably 20-year process of finding herself after that. Yeah.
Did you talk about what happened after she left?
We did. We started talking about it more in depth after high school, when I was older and I went to college. But she explained to me, she just said I had to listen to myself. I had to take care of myself. I remember her saying that to me. I was confused, of course. I knew my father's drinking was bad. I knew there was a tension between them. There was also a lot of love between them too. So her story also was a lesson in you can hold multiple things at the same time. You can love and also want to leave. You can be a really good person and do something really dark and really hard that actually hurts people, but ultimately it's okay. You can do all these things. You can be all these things, the messiness of being a human. So we did start talking about it when I was, and every year I would probably say we started talking very closely when I was in college, more and more intimately. And then she ended up moving across the country to California to care for her parents, my grandparents. And it was that distance, I think, that gave us almost the invitation to start being really vulnerable with each other. So we would have these long conversations, and the rebuilding started from there.
I just spoke to Isabel Allende 2 days ago, and we talked about this distance that can be so helpful for a relationship,
Really?
especially between a mother and a daughter. I don't know if you know her story, but her mother married a diplomat and left. I think Isabel was similar age like you. She moved countries, and Isabel and her brother stayed with the grandparents. And since then, her mother and Isabel have been writing letters to each other every single day. You know the story probably.
Wow.
They've written
Yeah.
24, and she talks about how it's exactly this distance between them that did not allow for everyday pettiness and everyday problems and everyday. She said because the time with each other, which was letters, was so precious, we didn't have time for pettiness. We just stuck to important things. And she thinks, and this is in a way what I experienced with my mom as well, because I left when I was 17. I moved to Austria to stay with my father. She returned. She stayed in Croatia, and I also think we had such a deep, strong relationship because of the distance. It's interesting you
It can
say that.
be, yeah,
Yeah,
it can be a beautiful thing. It
yeah,
is this kind of invisible permission, I think, sometimes. And sometimes it's just the heat of standing in front of somebody and having so much emotions. It can be too much sometimes.
exactly.
Sometimes we do,
Yeah,
that's why the phone can be kind of nurturing in a way.
yeah.
It's easier to talk to somebody over the phone maybe than it is even over Zoom or even in person. But I agree too. I think that you do, as you were saying, and as Isabel was reflecting on, there is this maybe the distance reminds you that there's so many more important things to focus on rather than those small
Exactly.
petty things. And that can really, really help too. And distance makes us ache for each other. It makes us miss each other too. And so when we have that reminder, we realize, okay, this person maybe has hurt me and done messy things. I've done that as well too as a human being, but I miss this person. I love this person. And also, this person was in crisis too. I think we start to see the reality of our situations more clearly. And whether or not we want to forgive, that's up to us. And whether or not we want to justify what some people do, that's up to us. I mean, that's an individual experience and that's unique. But I do think it allows us to see the clarity of, yeah, this person did the best they could under really dire circumstances. And I'm really going to focus on really the love and the connection.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
distance can be incredible.
Did writing the book help in some shape or form to understand even more that what she went through? Because you said she was in her 40s.
It did.
It
It
did, yeah.
did. And that's another reason why I'm fascinated with the 40s is there is this, it's hard to even define, but I do feel that at some point in this decade, there is this period where we realize this is me. I don't want to hide me anymore. I
Yeah.
want to say who I am out loud. It could be when we turn 40, it could be 49. It's different for everyone, but there is, again, I think it's primal.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it was her late 40s where she just came to a point where I can't live this lie anymore. I can't be suffocating like I am anymore. But writing it was incredibly cathartic. I have even more compassion for her than I have. And I think that as I grow older too, as a woman, I have more compassion for her. But yeah, it helped a lot. I mean, that's the beauty too. I think going back to the distance, that's a beautiful thing with writing, because writing, as you know, is so intimate, but it's solitary. We are physically distant
Yeah.
from the things we've experienced, but intimately re-experiencing them in this way. So I think that's why that can be so cathartic.
I read somewhere in the acknowledgments, I think, a dedication or an acknowledgement to your what did you call him? New father or
My bonus dad.
bonus
Yeah.
dad? So it sounds like it had a happy end for her. Did
It
it?
did. It did. So
Okay.
one of the many things my mother taught me was, and she didn't explicitly teach this to me,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned from her to honor your daydreams. She daydreams. So one of her dreams, one of her yearnings was, I grew up in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. I had a very, again, conventional kind of New England upbringing. My mother yearned to live out west, and she specifically yearned to live in nature. She yearned to live in a ranch. She watched John Wayne movies. She wanted to be a cowgirl. She is now. But she talked about it without apology. She talked about her passion. She talked about, even if it may have come off as silly, she talked about this desire to live out west, this desire to explore Montana. And she lives out west now, and she lives in Montana, and
Oh,
she's in nature, and she is remarried to an amazing man who is a cowboy, who I know my dad would be friends with if my dad were still here on this earth.
oh. When
So
did they get married?
there's
How old was
that.
she? When did she
She
find him?
was, so she moved to Montana. She made this another radical, amazing decision for herself when she was, gosh, I think she was 59 or 60. She moved from California to
Amazing.
Montana. Didn't know anyone. Didn't know anyone. It was amazing. Started completely over because at that point, as I mentioned earlier, she had moved to California to take care of her parents. I mean, caregiving is such a huge thing for women that
Huge,
we're starting to
huge.
talk about more, but need to talk about
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
They both passed. And so she
Mm-hmm.
was free. And she thought, where am I going to go? And I remember having a conversation with her saying, you need to go to Montana. I'm not taking credit for this. She was the one dreaming about it. But I said, let's go to Montana. And we took a trip together and explored different places. And she got a condo and she moved to Montana. And then she started taking these risks, going out, meeting people. And she took country dance lessons. And that's where she
Oh,
met her husband now.
fun. Oh my God,
But
I
this
love
was,
this
again,
story
she's in
so
her
much.
60s.
In her
She's in
60s.
her mid 70s now. But
Mm,
yeah,
amazing.
it's a journey too of self-worth. That's
Yeah,
the other thing we're up against as women so much. So much of
yeah.
this. I wish, if there's one thing I wish for every single woman in the entire world, and I'm thinking really of young girls and young women, but every woman, is to not ever let anything chip away at your self-worth. We're going to go through
Mm-hmm.
hard times. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
go through breakups and hard jobs and things that, we need to experience to know ourselves better. But I don't want any woman to experience their self-worth going away because of these
Mm,
stories. And that's what I experienced for so long. And that's what my mom experienced. And she's reclaimed that for herself. I'm worthy of joy. I'm worthy of happiness. I'm
mm.
worthy of a life that I daydream about. Every one of us is.
But this is, Stacey, why I'm so excited about you writing the 50s book, because I think, and I've learned this from my mom, and I think we talked about this when we were talking about your book. I think we start discovering this later in life. I think in our 50s and
Yeah.
60s, that's the time where we're finally like, I'm amazing the way I am.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
accepting yourself and accepting life and everything it brings. And just so many women talk about this. And that's one of the joys of aging. And
Yeah.
I've experienced it as well. And that's when we, but again, we should have it earlier, as you say. We should be going through this in our 20s. We shouldn't need to wait till we're 50 or 60 to be like, yay,
That's
I'm so awesome.
totally. I want this continued conversation, and it's a realistic, beautiful conversation of talking about how things can get better and better and better as we
Yeah,
grow older. That
yeah,
absolutely. We can keep reinventing our
yeah,
careers and
yeah,
our
yeah,
passions and our
yeah,
creativity. But I
yeah,
agree. I want younger women to experience this self-worth. Really, I don't want them to ever lose it. And again, you're going to have to kind of go through this life experiences, like I said, breakups and hard things, because that's how you know yourself, right? That's how
yeah,
you get your
absolutely.
grit, and that's how you learn, okay, I don't want this, but I do want that. But it's that self-worth piece, and it is true. It is something about growing older in our 40s and our 50s. But I want that to start happening a lot younger
Yeah.
for women. I hope the conversation you and I are having 50 years from now, women will go, what? I got it.
Of course. But this is, having done this podcast for so long, this is the task of mothers. This is what we as mothers need to instill in our daughters. We both don't have daughters, but if we had daughters, you know what I mean? Mothers need to teach their daughters this. And this is maybe the main lesson we need to teach them. Apropos teaching our daughters lessons, let's learn from Mama Lynn.
Let's learn from her.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you mentioned you can be many things at the same time. You mentioned to honor your daydreams. You mentioned starting again in your 60s, but you also sent me some amazing lessons. Can you share them with my listeners?
She always acknowledged my desire to do things a little differently. And I think this is beautiful. I'm seeing more and more women talk about this now. But what I mean by that is, ever since I was little, I didn't even know why then, but I just had this thought that I wasn't going to get married until, if I were to get married, it was going to be quote unquote later, right? It was not going to be in my 20s and 30s. I just always had this foreshadowing, if you will, that I was going to get married later. And that's true. I got married when I was 43, and I still wasn't even sure if I was going to get married ever. She always honored that. I talked to her too. I said, I don't think I'm going to have children of my own, even though I've had this really divine maternal energy in me. And I mother my friends' children and my niece and mother projects and my friendships. And she never put any expectations on me. She was so progressive and open-minded. And I love that. And that taught me to never, ever judge somebody's path. And if I ever find myself doing it, to check in with myself first. But she was always so open-minded about that. And I think in a lot of ways too, she was projecting her hopes for herself onto me in a beautiful way. Choose your own path, do what's right for you. So I really honored learning that from her. And she taught me about adventure. I mean, going back to the John Wayne movies, right? But she really did talk to me about this kind of heart-pounding, grab it with both hands adventure. For me, that a lot of that too was physical. It was travel, it was riding horses, it was doing things that I was physically able to do. But it also meant too reading adventurous books and watching adventurous movies and learning about different people's lifestyles. And I learned that from my mom, and I'm really grateful for that. And I learned about joy.
Joy. I just wanted to say joy because interesting. Yeah, that's a beautiful lesson that doesn't come so often. Joy. How did she teach you that?
She taught me that in explicit ways and implicit ways too. So explicitly, that was part of, I think, the adventure, but she likes to laugh. And I really do. I love to I don't know anybody who doesn't like to have a good time, right?
Yeah,
like, especially us women as we get older, we want to have a good time. Life is hard enough. We want to have fun. But just to be goofy and silly and just grab those little joy moments when you can too, whatever that may be, a joke or acknowledging something funny, or those very acute moments of joy, she embodies that. And she taught me that. But then the more implicit ways was seeing her not have a lot of joy when she was struggling in the face of my father's alcoholism, when she was struggling living her life, again, doing the quote, right things expected of her. I saw her robbed of joy a lot of times. And I didn't know it then, but it took me years to look back and see, she was, again, filling these expectations, but in the face of doing that, she was robbing herself of joy that was so critical to her and who she is. So that was a lesson later on. And now she has so much joy. I go and visit her, and she has she is so present. She's so in the moment. She has endless joy.
That's amazing. And you got married in Montana. I remember seeing your photos.
I did, yeah.
Oh, that must have been so fun. It was fun. That's so fun. So fun. Love it.
Fun.
I have one last thing, which is personal freedom. Is this connected to her daring to leave?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one big lesson. Yeah,
it is. That's something we define for ourselves. What is personal freedom? And it might I think it does take some deep introspection to know what that is.
Yeah.
It can be something totally different for me as it is for you, as it is for another woman, even though I think we all actually feel a similar desire for personal freedom. But does that mean leaving a career that's not fitting me anymore? Does it mean leaving a partnership? Does it mean having a child in my late 40s, even though the world is saying, what are you doing crazy? Personal freedom is so obviously personal. But that's another thing that I think really my book is about ultimately. And I think that's the work of our lives as women. What does personal freedom mean to me? And how can I have that in my life?
For me personally, I'm taking a lesson on making hard decisions. Because my mom, for instance, never really, she kind of separated from my father, but they never divorced and never made the clear cut. And that was extremely unhealthy for all of us. Yeah. So as painful as that cut was for all of you, there's something powerful and healing in that as well, because it's not good when things just linger half dead and unresolved. That's also not good. So
because you're in sort of a purgatory almost. And you're not fully declaring what you want and going toward what's new.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah. That's what I've learned from Mama Lynn. And for the end, the big and very important topic of something important she was not able to teach you, something you had to learn by yourself.
It was in witnessing her quiet her voice and quiet her desires in the face of the expectations that I learned how that can crumble somebody, how that can rob somebody of their joy, as we talked about. And so she taught me that, but she didn't sit me down and say that to me. She taught me that just by living her life. And then ultimately, she taught me that by leaving. She taught me about personal freedom and declaring yourself by leaving, and how leaving can be so painful and so serious. And also, it means going toward yourself many times, and it means going toward something new and something aligned with your integrity and soul. So again, she didn't sit down and say, I want to teach you this, but I did witness, and I'm still witnessing how she kind of camouflaged her desires in a lot of ways and her unease until one day finally she realized, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. It was hard. It was painful. It was messy. It was also beautiful. And I am who I am now because of witnessing that and learning that from her.
Yeah. And it's amazing you have her and you have a beautiful relationship with her now, because had she stayed, who knows what would have happened to her. So
who knows, right?
Who knows? Yeah, we can only endure so much before it goes into our health, and
Yeah. A beautiful note too. My mother and father ended up becoming really good friends years later.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So he was pained, he was heartbroken, but they actually came back to each other, and they were dear, dear friends.
Oh, that's
at the end of his life. Yeah.
Did he ever have a relationship again?
He did.
He did. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. Thank you for the book.
Anna.
Thank you for being in my life.
Thank you for asking these questions. And again, connecting us women. You've connected so many women. And then from there, we've connected with other women. And I'm so grateful to you.
It's beautiful how we connect each other. Yeah, it is. Thank you for sharing Mama Lynn's lessons. Let's quickly recap to push against expectations and ideas. I would say she was non-judgmental. She wasn't judging you.
No, never.
Yeah, exactly. And allowed you to just make your own decisions and create your own life. The adventure, I love that. Heart-pounding, horse-riding, epic adventures you wrote. I love it. Of course, we'll learn to go after our dreams and to to stand up for ourselves in our 40s, but also later in our 60s. How amazing. I'm learning, which I've learned from so many moms through this podcast, that there's always a chance for this very joyful later stage in life. For me, this is very inspiring and comforting, hearing about all these moms who live their best lives in their 60s and 70s. To embrace goofiness and laughter, to the pursuit of personal freedom, which you just talked about, that we can be many things at the same time. That's really stuck with me and is really, really important. And to honor your daydreams.
To say them out loud too when you feel safe, even if it's only in the company of yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can share them with somebody else, because that is, we say, follow your dreams. But sometimes I think, what does that mean? That can almost be intimidating. But I always say, honoring the daydreams, pay attention to the things that you've noticed your mind wandering and listen to those. And I learned that from my mom.
Maybe there's an aspect of this whole theory or idea that universe is a mirror, and what you project into it, it will give back to you. So if you keep telling it Montana and the cowboy, the universe might give you Montana and the cowboy.
Right.
Stacey, thank you so much again.
This has been such a joy. Such a joy. Thank you.
Here's to the next one when you write your 50s book.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Me too.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyoumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.